This is Daman Bamrah. Daman Bamrah is a multi-platform, very skilled comedian. He works in stand-up, improv, and sketch content. It makes him very useful to be speaking to about how AI can affect comedy. Have you ever used a writer for your own stuff when you are personally performing stand-up or making a sketch?
Have I ever used a writer, as in, have I ever outsourced someone to write something for me that I would use in stand-up? No, I haven't done that as of yet.
You make that sound
I'd
like
say-
it's more of a budget thing than an artistic choice. What is?
I was
am I putting
was
words in
gonna
your mouth
say,
there?
it's it's definitely both. Like, artistically, I don't want to do it, and I also don't have the budget for it if I did want to do it. So it's out of the realm of choices for me. But I don't think I would do that at the moment. And the reason I say that is, I think that comedy is a really personal thing. As much as a lot of people gather and everyone has a sort of shared communal experience, when you're creating art, in my experience, it comes from a very personal place. So I personally like to hear the deep sort of personal things that people talk about, not in a deep personal way, but in the way that they sort of portray it through their stand-up. I think that's some of the funniest stuff, rather than the kind of more generic topics that people might talk about.
Maybe it seems obvious, but why would using a writer, another source, shall we say, to produce funny content, why would that feel less personal to you? Can you explain that more, even though it might be obvious to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can, if someone was to use a writer, if those writers were working on personal stuff that the comedian has talked about and wants to work on, that is probably going to be closer to something that I would want to hear. But I think the difference is, can someone else articulate my feelings for me on something as well as I can, or as clearly as I can, at least? I don't know if that's necessarily the case or not.
Do you think there's something unique about, say, stand-up rather than sketch work that means that either an audience or a performer is expected both to be the performer and author of the work, and the complete author of the work? Do you think that's kind of uniquely to do with stand-up, or would that be the case in online sketch or anything like that?
I think that's an interesting question. I think stand-up is expected to be a lot more personal when it is personal, if that makes sense. Because a lot of stand-up is, I don't know, let's say Michael McIntyre, he talks about really sort of day-to-day things that a lot of us could relate to. I don't know if people like that because he's articulating an experience they share so well, or if it's that he personally feels this way about that thing, and that's also the way that the audience feels about that thing. I think, in fact, as we say that now, I think it is that. I think it's that. I think even in that case, it's that the audience like that he has had that personal experience, and them sharing the experience is the icing on top. So I think with stand-up, yeah, in any case, people expect it, or I certainly do, to be personal to a point. Whereas for sketch, because you're seeing someone paint a scene, tell a story, that's not to do generally just with one person. I think as soon as you add someone else into the mix, it can get a lot less personal, but people will accept it.
Yeah, I wonder whether I certainly meet those people in a stand-up club who believe that all stand-up, normally an audience member, that all stand-up is the performer just making it up as they go along. That's certainly something that you meet every so often. And I think if you ask people who don't perform stand-up what the balance between what was written and what was kind of made up, They often think that a lot more was made up on the spot than often is. And I think that some people would definitely say that's kind of the point, that stand up, you kind of suspend your disbelief and you feel like you're being spoken to kind of directly to, that something's coming from the heart, that it feels spontaneous, even if you know that it was written by that performer beforehand. If you then find out that it was written by somebody other than the performer, you can then kind of feel a bit cheated, can't you? Particularly because so much stand up is presented in either a kind of a confessional way or it presents itself as truth.
Oh yeah.
And so when you find out that something kind of wasn't true, you're like, but like you had me kind of going there.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether people don't like being lied to or whatever. And I think that's kind of super interesting.
Definitely, I completely agree. It's even like, even if we go away from like actually viewing someone, you know, sort of perform their art like they wouldn't stand up or as an actor. If, let's say you like an actor, but then you find out that actually this actor that you really like is a bit of a dick in real life, it shatters the illusion.
Ruins
you don't like it. It ruins it.
Yeah.
And in this stand-up is similar to that in a way where when someone is expressing something to you, you want to believe that it's whatever they're expressing is true to some degree at least. And that extends to even the way that they're expressing it. You know, if someone is really high energy on stage, they're jumping around, and you see them off stage and they're just sort of a somber, quiet person, again, it shatters the illusion, and you just think, you kind of remember that you've seen a performance. And I think that you don't want stand-up to feel like that. You want stand-up to feel like a conversation almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Big believer in that. We're all sort of expected to be singer-songwriters in a way that maybe there's a different expectation in kind of other art forms. And I think that's kind of our own making. That's the way that we present it. Do you think that an AI can be used rather than replacing a human writer? Would you ever use, if you'd written a fantastic setup, let's say you've got a fantastic setup to a joke, you've tried it a few times online, and you're like, or maybe even after Corona in a live comedy club, remember those? My word. Nope. You've tried it a few times, and you're like, I know that there's something really good in the setup. Would you ever be tempted, if the technology were good enough, to put your setup into a predictive text machine, see what comes out? Would you, A, be happy to do that? 2, do you foresee any problems with that?
Well, first of all, would I be tempted to put my setup in if this is going to spit out a punchline? Oh my God, I would definitely do that. Yeah.
Big time.
Now, I've got to see what comes out the other side. There are some formulas, so to speak, that people can use for joke writing, and you could potentially put some of those formulas into an algorithm form for it to spit out a punchline. But for it to truly do anything original, and I think a lot of you'd want as the market gets more saturated, you want comedy to be more original. You want a unique viewpoint on things. You want personality behind it. Could an AI bring out any of those things? I'm not so sure. Not right now, anyway.